Black-Eyed Boy at the Door by u/Zerusha. Hi, I saw a story pop up on my Reddit feed about a black-eyed kid. It scared me because I saw a black-eyed kid once, and it still haunts me today. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Nepal. I lived in a small and remote village, and one night, I woke up and thought that I heard something at my door. I got up, cracked the door, and I saw nothing there. I thought perhaps it was a deer or a porcupine, but there was nothing. I closed the door and turned around, got back into bed, and the second that I turned around, I saw a child. Black outline, white face, black hair, and deep black eyes. And I laid there stunned. I quickly pulled the covers over my face. The moment I did that, I woke up. It was a dream. The same night sequence in the dream was reality. It was freaky, and it felt so real. I can remember that boy's outline and eyes. A week or so later, my host father unexpectedly passed away. It was devastating to the family and the entire community, and for a long time, I thought my dream was a bad omen. At times, I try to think it wasn't related at all. It was weird timing, and it still scares me to this day. My Dream About Black-Eyed Children by u/Little Rebel 420. So, I live in a small house, and behind me are woods with an abandoned pool, barn, and a slab of concrete where a house was built. Before I get into my story, there are a few things that you need to know about this land. First, the house that was on the concrete was demolished in one day. When we asked our neighbor about it, he just told us that one day the family was there, and the next, they were gone and the house was gone, almost like they packed up and left overnight. Second, in the barn there are two names written on the concretes, Jenna and Jeannie, both with the same date, 1997. And third, there is an old lawn chair sitting out there in the middle of the woods with only a small layer of leaves. If you think about it by now, those leaves would have been piled on the chair, and not just a small pile. Also, the metal isn't rusted at all. With all of this being said, yes, we had strange encounters, but nothing like the dream that I had last night. It started with me and my boyfriend walking out of the woods. We kept hearing things, and we saw that we were being followed. After we got out, a little girl appeared wearing a white but older dress. Her hair was knotted like she has been in the woods for a long time, and where the color in her eyes were supposed to be, it was black, almost like her pupil had taken over. I turned around and asked, "Are you okay?" And she reached out and touched me. I instantly went to a flashback, but not mine. It was hers. There was a couple no later than their 30s crying hysterically, while a group of 6 to 7 children, all with black eyes, around the ages of 6 to 16, were around them. A little boy around the age of 8 or 9 with dirty overalls and a shirt under spoke up and said, "You are on our land. This is our land. We told you to leave." And he picks up an axe and chopped the girl's arm off. She fell to the ground screaming as all the kids started to stick their hatchets in her back. I wanted to scream stop, but I was frozen and I couldn't speak, blink, or move. They then proceed to the boy, tying him to the ground. At that time, the little girl let go and I was back at the opening to our woods, and she just stood there. I ran inside and kept peeking out, and she was still there, watching, but not going any further than the opening at the woods. When I finally woke up, I told my boyfriend, and he was in complete shock. I asked what's wrong, and he said that he had a dream that we were being chased through the woods, but he didn't know by what. If anyone has anything that can help, please share. I had read a lot about them, and I know not to let them in, but it seems to me that I'm dealing with something a lot more serious than the normal, and I have a feeling that they are not going away. I almost pissed myself. By you/I_am_fools_gold. So, when I was like 13, my mom and her boyfriend had to go to the hospital, and no one would be able to get my brother to the bus stop the next morning because they had to stay overnight. So, I got to miss school the next day to take my brother. After I made sure that my brother got on the bus and stuff, I went home and cleaned and did random stuff that a 13-year-old did. It was around 11:45 when there was a knock on my door. Thinking it was the mailman or a neighbor or something, I opened the door and said hello. There was this kid at my door. He couldn't have been much older than me at that time, but he had bangs that were covering his eyes, which I found very weird because it was like 107 degrees out there. And this kid was super still, like I thought that one of my friends put a mannequin there and ran away or something. But then it spoke. It sounded like a fucking robot or something. It was like it was programmed to say this. My mother said to ask someone for a phone in fear that I get lost. Do you have a phone? He said, like some fucking 1950s kid. At this point, I was shitting my pants because 1, I'm a 13-year-old girl and this older boy, dressed like a burglar, was at my door with half of his face covered. And number 2, for some reason, I just couldn't look away. I felt like if I moved or said anything other than yes, then I would explode. And 3, I saw 2 other boys around the same age standing in my driveway, dressed the exact way the one in the front of me was. Baggy jeans, dark hoodie, and scuffed up Vans. So I started to stutter and shake my head. It was the only thing that I could do, and I finally got out a no, then started to close my door. But the fucking bastard put his foot in the way. Then the 2 others started walking up, and I was going like, hell no. I grabbed the bat by the door and threatened him. If you don't leave right now, I'll fucking kick your ass and then I'll call the cops. I shouted loud enough so at least one of my neighbors could hear, I hoped. Obviously, not my exact words, because this was so long ago and I just shouted anything to get them away. Now, I was this short girl with fucking SpongeBob pajama pants on. I was in no way threatening. Then the fucker moved his foot and stepped back into the middle of the other 2 perfectly. Then the far right one said, in the exact same tone and voice as the first, I'm sorry to bother you. I'll just come again later and ask. Internally, I was planning my funeral. Just as I was about to close the door, the first one smiled and looked up, and there were black fucking eyes. The other two looked the same, and I was like, nope, and slammed the door shut then, and called my neighbor, who was this big-ass 20-something-year-old dude. He ran over and looked for them all around my house, but he said that they were gone. When I told my mom all of this, she didn't believe me and said that I was just lying. Said that me, the girl with absolutely no social life, is afraid of her own shadow, and was just lying. My wife said that I should get this experience off of my chest. I use /ST Luscious. I have spent decades in the military intelligence community, so I don't want to put out too much information about myself on a public forum. However, I am curious if there are any other experiences that overlap my own. We live off base in this rundown community that looks like any other rundown community that you find anywhere else next to a military installation. The apartment complex itself was nice by the standards of the rest of the buildings in our area. At 12:30 on a Friday morning, I was woken up by a series of knocks on my heavy wooden door. I have a rule. One series of knocks is just people messing with the neighbors. But if they really need something, they will knock twice. Yep, there came the second series of knocks, and I expected it to be someone from my work trying to get a hold of me, and my cell phone had died. It happened before. I opened the door and stared down at this kid that I estimate to have been 6 years old. There was so much about this kid that was bizarre. The eyes, features suggested in black-eyed kids, seems kind of trivial. I can't say with 100% of confidence that his eyes were all black orbs. I just don't know, because the rest of him was such a mess. When I look at people, I don't know. I have a habit of avoiding eye contact. The rest of his description is as follows. For the clothing, gray filthy hooded sweatshirt with the hood up halfway with matching sweatpants. His shoes, unremarkable. His skin complexion, well, for the lack of a better phrase, I would say that he was extremely pale. Not clear if there were blemishes in a way of freckles on his skin, or if he was just really dirty. And for his hair, possible reddish brown, messy, dirty, and short. His face was in this grimace of hatred. His expression was like someone who was sucking on the world's most sour candies. Here's the worst part of it. The body odor he was radiating was like something that I have never smelled before or since. I have smelled decomposing bodies in war, and the closest smell I can relate to was in Ranger School. In Ranger School, due to the lack of food and rest, often guys' bodies will start to consume muscle for energy. Combined with the lack of bathing opportunities, this creates an odor that is hard to top. But this kid smelled like weaponized foulness. I asked, "Can I help you?" In a flat voice, void of inflection, he said, "My parents don't like you." I responded, What?" He stated, "You will be okay if you give us something great." I slammed the door on him because I thought he was just screwing with me. He let out this scream, saying no, and I could hear him on the other side throwing a tantrum, like you see what toddlers in the store do when their parents won't let them have something. Definitely a very strange thing to do at midnight. However, kids running around a dilapidated neighborhood, unsupervised, was a pretty common occurrence, and I just chalked it up to bad parenting. I showered and threw my clothes out because I didn't want that stench on me, and I went back to bed because I had to be up again in 4 hours. The strange thing is that the stench didn't seem to linger. I saw this kid on 3 other occasions. The second time I was going out to my car in the morning and he was standing in the parking lot glaring at me. When I came home, he was staring at me standing in the same exact spot. Then when I looked out the window hours later, he was still in the same spot, glaring with that same sneer at nothing. I asked my wife what she made of him, and she said that he wasn't bothering anything, which was a pretty low bar for that neighborhood. Kids would often run around vandalizing people's vehicles and apartments. I thought about calling the authorities. However, what was I going to say? That there's this weird kid? He might need help because he's weird and he stinks. And the truth is that I hated this kid. Now, I have 3 kids of my own, so I don't just out-hate other kids. However, I hated this one. I hated his smell. I hated that he existed. And I felt like he was trying to target and bully me for some reason. No, I didn't want to help this kid. Also, I had these paranoid thoughts of, if this kid hates me as much as I hate him, he's going to lie to the cops and tell them that I had harmed him, and it could affect my security clearance. So it's best just to ignore him, and this will all go away. One time, I saw him interacting with kids outside, so I know he wasn't a figment of my imagination. However, he didn't play with them like a normal kid. This girl would come up and grab him by the arm, and he would just stand there and glare at her. There were other kids running around him, and he just stared at them with that grimace. My wife wanted me to share this experience that I had back in 2011, and at that time, I worked in the office of a regional command. I've been read into various truly bizarre government programs. However, thinking about it, I still don't know what to make of this kid. I don't know what to get out of this writing. Maybe someone knows more about this kid or has other similar experiences. It's certainly not extraordinary like some of the other experiences that people on Reddit have had. And I'm not saying that this kid was magical or demonic. I can't rule out that he was truly just some kid of misfortune. Maybe the right thing to do would have been to get him help. However, I just can't get past how much I hated him for no reason. Between that and the smell, my experience wasn't that bizarre. What I do know is that I'm fine with never seeing that kid ever again. Possible Black-Eyed Kid Encounter in Mexico by U/Malice Darkblade. I want to share my story here now that I know that this group exists. This happened almost 8 years ago. I live in the northern part of Mexico, and I went to pet my dog, a Siberian Husky, to my front yard at 2 to 3 a.m. I was also checking my cell phone in a bench next to him. Suddenly, I see a kid with a cane outside the fence walking up to us, like 4 feet distance from me and my dog. My dog starts barking and the kid screams, kinda scared, when he sees my dog, and immediately asks me if it's a wolf, which I answer without looking at him directly, saying, "Oh, no, it's a husky." I felt so confused, like, what the hell is this kid doing outside at 3 a.m. and why does he have a cane? I assumed that he was blind or something because he seemed to have black sunglasses. But this was really odd. So I started to feel danger all over me, and for some reason, I never looked at him directly. I started ignoring him, keeping my eyes on my cell phone. But he then does the weirdest scream ever. It sounded like some kind of malfunctioning computer or machine, and as he screamed, I saw in the street a bright light. It was a truck, speeding up like crazy. It looked like some of those old Chevy pickups, and the truck passes by and the screaming stops. And the child just disappears in thin air before me. I reacted and quickly opened the fence to check outside, and I could not see any trace of that kid, nor that truck. It's worth mentioning that he was never wearing old clothes like from another period of time. The brief conversation was in Spanish, and I never saw him directly in the eyes or face. Looking from the corner of my eye, I was sure that he was wearing some kind of black sunglasses. And after investigating on the internet, I came to the conclusion that they were most likely his eyes. And I never heard of black-eyed children before this happened to me. Possible Black-Eyed Kid Encounter in Ohio by U/Abraham Spitch. This happened years ago. I was only 8 years old at that time and visiting family in Beaver Creek, Ohio. It was about dusk outside and I was riding a small motorized bike around the street, which was a cul-de-sac. No one else was in their front yards or on the sidewalk. It was just me in the street with my bike. I was making the last trip around going back to the house when I saw two kids walking, holding hands, that I didn't see just a minute ago when I had looked. I came up on them fast and I slowed down when I passed them to get a better look at them. They looked so off. Their skin was white, almost gray, and they were wearing tattered black clothing that looked like the Halloween costumes, and it was July when I was there. They both stared at me, and I stared back. My heart was beating so fast. One of them reached out for me to say, "Wait," but I sped away as fast as I could. I made it back to my house and ran upstairs through the garage. My cousin was waiting for me upstairs, who is older than me, and I closed the blinds in her room, sat on the windowsill, and peeked through the blinds. She asked me what I was doing, and I had explained to her. She got a little quiet, and I kept looking for another 5 minutes, waiting for them to pass by the house. But nothing. I didn't see them walk away, go in any houses, or walk by the house ever. It's like they vanished or ran off in the 1 minute it took me to get from the garage to the room. I still don't really know how to explain this, and I'm not sure if it was black-eyed kids, weird kids, or something else. But either way, I will never forget the feeling of dread that came upon me when I saw their faces. Was this a black-eyed kid? By U/Myra_HMM. This happened a couple years ago. My husband and I were up late worrying about our dog. She puked red and we thought that she wasn't feeling well. Turns out she had jumped on the dining room table and ate some of my roses that I had in a vase, so she ended up being fine. But my husband and I were worried and hadn't realized that she ate the roses yet, so we decided to go to the vet. It was about 10 or 11, I'm pretty sure. When we stepped outside the door, we looked to our left at the cul-de-sac that's next to the neighborhood. It's an empty road except for one house, an old man and his dog live in, and a CrossFit gym. In the middle of the cul-de-sac, there's this little girl, maybe 4 or 5, and she's riding an old metal tricycle in a circle. The tricycle was making this constant squeaking sound, so that itself was pretty creepy. There was something off about it. The way she was riding the tricycle, it just didn't seem right. My husband and I both remember her being under some kind of light, but there's no streetlight where she was at. I felt creeped out but more confused and worried than anything. My husband pulled me away and said that we gotta go, and he was pretty freaked out by her too. I didn't really get a good look at her eyes, and when my husband pulled me away, the squeaking stopped, and I thought that I heard her say, "Mommy?" I don't really remember well. Everything happened pretty fast, but I think I glanced back after she stopped pedaling, and as my husband was pulling me away, there was something weird about her face. I vaguely remember thinking her eyes were black, but I didn't get a good look, and I also didn't know all about black-eyed kids, so I don't think that I really thought about it. I just recently learned about black-eyed kids. So, does anyone think that this may have been a black-eyed kid? Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.